Everybody, this is Minus, and I am with Nathan, and today we made it to episode 5. Some people would be like, why do you separate making it to every episode? Because this shit's hard.
It's a victory. Every episode's another victory.
It's not about hits. It's not about views. It's about the fact that we're still best friends. Let's say best YouTube friends.
This one's going to be a good one. This is Punchout. I think it's engraved in all of our hearts. It's a good one. It's a classic.
Now, did you play a lot of boxing games over your era of gaming?
You know, I always liked boxing games, man. There's not enough of them. Punch-Out would have been my first boxing game, and then I don't think I played another one until Genesis. It was like...
I might be able to prove you wrong. You didn't play Ring King?
Oh, I did play Ring King.
Yeah, right. That was the one that a lot of people forget. Really good NES game.
Yeah, a little too triple X in the matches.
Yeah, there was some crazy stuff going on in that game. And then, I mean, you had the whole Fight Night series, and even if you weren't into it, super good, right? Where did they go?
I know. Well, you know, they were making a new one, apparently, if I'm remembering correctly. Some dude from EA came to see how the progress was, and he just fired everybody, and that was it.
That's crazy. So UFC killed everything about boxing, it looks like.
I think it did. I think that's what did it.
So this one was definitely an early love of mine. And when I talk Punch-Out, I'm going to be very clear here. It's Mike Tyson's Punch-Out.
That's right.
11 world-class contenders. Take them down with your controller, beat them all, and you've got a shot at Tyson's title. Power! But for that, you've got to beat Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson's Punch-Out from Nintendo.
I was hoping you would say that. It's not Mr. Dream. What was that his name? Mr. Dream.
Mr. Dream, yep.
I'm a Mike Tyson fan.
Oh, I love Mike Tyson.
I don't know if I was yet. This was fairly early in his career.
Yeah.
But I became one, and I don't know, maybe Punch-Out had something to do with that. I'm not sure.
Oh, of course. I mean, as a kid, you know, think about the marketing they do in games now compared to what they did then. Even then, as a kid, you're like, oh, this guy's in a video game. He must be great.
He must be
awesome. You remember, like, you know, Joe Montana Sports Talk Football. Joe Montana was awesome, but he had his own video game.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So with Punch-Out, for me, so when I was a young kid, me and my dad used to game together. He was a big gaming fan. He actually got me into it. It's funny because he can't play anything anymore, but he got me into it. And if you remember those VHS, you'd open them up, they'd have 2 handles, and you'd have VHSs on the side and in the front.
Oh yeah.
You remember those?
Yeah.
I used to have 2 of those that were full of NES games. So I have this cabinet full of NES games. I had 2 of them, and every time I'd go to my dad's for the weekend, we would actually get a new game or 2. You know, he didn't have a lot of money, but he would spend it on us playing video games, which was kind of cool. And this was a game that he played religiously. Like, I'm not even kidding. He lived, breathed, ate, slept Punch-Out. And, you know, you had the codes when you got so far where you could start at them. And I will tell you this story. He played it all the time. I wasn't very good at it. I liked to play it. I got good later. But he was really good at it. And I remember watching him. He fought Super Macho Man. We'll get into some of the fights, but he fought Super Macho Man for weeks. And I'm sitting there, and I'm little. My dad's a real big dude. And I'm sitting there, and he beats him. And I jump up as a little kid, and I'm like, and he looks at me. He's like screaming. And he gives me a high five so hard that it hits my head, and I fly backwards. Like, literally high-fived me through the air.
Victories were so much sweeter back then, weren't they? Like,
yeah, you earned it.
Yeah, it took a long time. Like, you would have to dedicate yourself for a large quantity of time to actually get good at some of these games.
Yeah. And it was funny because I think one of the reasons I love Punch-Out is because he was so good at it, and I was pretty young, and it took me a lot longer to get good at this game, but I constantly kept playing it because my dad was really good at it. Right. There were games I could beat him at, you know, as a kid, but that was the game. He was really good at that, and I wanted to be good. I wanted to sort of be able to challenge his times and stuff like that, so it was important. Right. Yeah, right? So it was weird. It was this weird little bonding between the two of us from Punch-Out, which is pretty funny.
Very cool.
So what are some of your first, in like I said, we can go into some of the fighters, but right off the top of your head, what are the first couple of things you think of when you talk Punch-Out?
Well, first of all, I think of that time of gaming. So it was a very fun time for gaming for me. I had my games, I had friends at school, and they had games. But I had a cousin who didn't necessarily live close to me, but didn't live that far away, and me and him were the people who, if he got a new game, then I had to go to his house. If I got a new game, he had to come to my house. But he had neighbors who were much older than us. They were like teenagers, and we were still little kids, and they had a huge collection of games. Like, they had every game, it seemed like, at least. And that's where I played Punch-Out out for the first time. And what's funny is, they were older than us, and we were just little kids. So, like, I don't even know why they let us come over and play their Nintendo. We probably got on their nerves. So, like, it was kind of like, how guys are, especially when we were young. We kind of got beat up, They kind of beat us up. But it was worth it. We would still go over there to play the NES games. And that's just kind of what it reminds me of. Like, it's just going over there to their house and fighting for your life, and also playing Punch-Out.
Yeah, you know what it was back then? It's so different than it was today, because you were younger, but back then you just wanted someone to play with.
Yeah.
It didn't matter, like, if you were nerdy or you were a jock, or if you were a gamer back then, if someone else was a gamer, there was at least someone to play with. Yeah, yeah. I mean, and if you were really bad, then it was cool to play with them because you whooped their ass.
Yeah, that's right.
So for me, when I think Punch-Out, I think Glass Joe.
Yeah, me too, definitely. That's the first thing that comes to my mind, because I always hated typing in the codes, man. I was kind of lazy, I guess, as a kid.
So you just start at the beginning.
Yeah, I would just almost always just be like, I'm not writing that down. I'll just start over. Like, I hardly ever did it. There was a couple.
If only we had cell phones, you could just take a picture.
Yeah,
of
just
the
took a
screen.
picture. I would have done that, But I didn't want to
Think about that back in the day. You have a Polaroid camera.
Somebody out there did that. Somebody out there did that.
Wait, how do I get to ball? So,
yeah.
I'm sorry, I interrupted, but Glass Joe, right? So, the first fight.
Okay, so I gotta say something about it. I never had any trouble with him,
No.
At all. But I'll tell you something funny that I found out later in life. Mike Tyson never even beat him. Like, the real Mike Tyson. Yeah, seriously, look it up. He never even could beat Glass Joe.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's good. That's good stuff. So Mike couldn't play his own game.
No, he was terrible at his own game.
I wish I could do a really good Mike Tyson impersonation, because that would be fantastic. Like Mike Tyson yelling at Glass Joe. Come on.
And do you remember the commercial? Do you remember the commercial back then with Mike Tyson in it? And he was like in front of like 100 TVs playing Punch-Out.
I was going to rip his heart out. I'm the best ever. I'm the most brutal and vicious and most ruthless champion there's ever been. There's no one can stop me. Lynx is a conqueror. No, I'm Alexander. He's no Alexander. I'm the best ever. There's never been anybody as ruthless. I'm Sonny Liston. I'm Jack Dempsey. There's no one like me. I'm from Nairclaw. There's no one that can match me. My style is impetuous. My defense is impregnable. And I'm just ferocious. I want your heart. I want to eat his children.
Gradually got, the difficulty gradually did increase in this game. That wasn't necessarily the normal at that time, but it was very gradually,
Yeah, and it got really hard. King Hippo.
Oh, classic.
Super classic.
The most classic. And I don't know if that's only mainly because after that it got really hard, so I didn't make it much further. I don't know.
Yeah.
But dude, that's like, he was even
what a great
the
fight.
Nintendo show, dude.
Lettuce is green, tomatoes are red. Turn King Hippo into a salad head.
Hey, this ain't lubrication!
Mr. Nintendo, what was that show called?
Nintendo. I don't remember. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Though. Kid Nintendo.
Kid
Nintendo,
something like that.
Behold, the ultimate warp zone.
Kevin, I thought I told you to clean up your room. Whoa!
Captain N, the Game Master.
Yeah, but the best. I mean, what a fight, right? You can't hurt the guy until you punch him in the mouth, and then his pants fall down.
Yeah.
And he's got the little
Get a
Band-Aid
little
on his
Band-Aid
belly
right on
button
his
and just
belly.
start popping him. I mean, it's funny because a lot of the game, for the most part, for an NES game, was pretty serious, right?
Yeah.
There were goofy things, but King Hippo was like a complete standout, weird character, weird mechanics, and he'd live on through. He wasn't in Super Punch-Out, but he was in the Punch-Out for Wii.
Yeah.
They brought him back, and he had like a hard mode where he had like armor on his belt. Like, so
Yeah.
some crazy stuff with that. But yeah, that character's a pretty iconic Nintendo character.
And I'll tell you something else very interesting about that character is all the other characters in Punch-Out, the original Punch-Out NES, were reskins of one another.
Yep.
Except for he was the only one with his own unique sprite. They didn't do any color swap outs or anything like that. So that helped them stand out some more too.
It would be interesting to kind of hear the story behind that, like the King Hippo, coming up with King Hippo, because with everything that you put into him, or they put into him being different looking, and then the fact that he did live on so much, he wasn't like an end game boss.
No.
He was like a mid game.
Yeah.
If you'd even say that. So
once you knew his secret, he wasn't hard either.
No, not at all.
Once you knew what to do, he was. You knew you were going to beat him.
Yeah, he wasn't hard to get past. I think the first wall, like some of those guys were tough, but the first wall that really stands out for me was Bulbo.
Yeah, with the charge.
Bulbo. Yeah. And you know what was funny about him is like when you were getting close to beating him, you know, at first, like certain enemies that you fight in a game, if you catch them during like their special, that's how you beat them. And with Bulbo, it was really hard. Like as a kid, I remember the timing was perfect or not. I mean, he came at you and you threw a gut punch. And if you caught the gut punch,
I'd like to see like what the actual, because I know somebody has them now, the actual physical stats of how many frames you actually have to get that just right. It's definitely small.
It's funny when you think about Punch-Out, how many iconic characters this game has that I think a lot of gamers would know today.
Yeah.
You know, you had Mario as the referee.
True.
Right, which was a little cool thing. I mean, we haven't even talked about Little Mac yet. Little Mac's in Smash Brothers. I mean, he's lived on incredibly.
Fight for what's right. Train through the night. Push towards the light. Use all your might. They'll try to bring you down. Run you out of town. Don't let them stop you.
And he's one of the he's like the underdog of the Nintendo franchise because man, Lil Mac's awesome. Did you ever? I did not, but did you ever get to play the arcade version?
Yes.
It was you did with the frame.
Yeah, you had the two controls, right? You had the two sticks.
I didn't get to play it. I've seen it.
And you were just like a green frame.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. Hard.
And we gotta talk about how well of a job they did for NES hardware to pull off that game. And I know they're very different, but I think that this was a time when there was no rules. There was no like this is how you make a boxing game. And if they would have followed the easy path, it would not be the Punch-Out we know today. It'd have been more like
to just do the green frame instead of having an actual character.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we wouldn't have a Little Mac as iconic either.
Yeah, it is interesting because I do remember playing that in the arcade, and I do remember it being significantly harder. And I think it was just because you had these two sticks you had to hold. You had to do like certain things, like you had to move them both to the right to move right, both to the left, duck, and then like one at a time would punch.
They re-released that for like maybe I think now it's too late, but like on the Wii Store or whatever it's called. I think they
Like
released
the-
the arcade
that's
perfect
cool.
version of it. I could be
I wonder
wrong.
what an arcade version of that game would cost, because that would be really cool to have.
That would be really awesome to have. Because a lot
That'd
of
be
people don't
really
even
cool.
realize it existed. A lot of people don't
Yeah.
even know about it.
Yeah.
One thing, real quick, before we move on, because this kind of ties into Lil Mac, the other character that nobody ever talks about, and unfortunately, I don't remember his name, so it's not going to make it much better. But the your coach, what was
Doc
his-
Lewis.
Doc, was that Doc who?
Doc.
It was
They,
Doc.
they usually
That's it, baby. Keep it up, Mac. Keep it up.
call him Doc, but it was Doc Lewis.
Do you watch? Have you ever watched the show The Office, the American version?
Yes, but I couldn't say that I've seen them all for sure.
What's the guy's name? There's a guy from The Office that is Doc, dude.
Oh yeah. I know
You know
who you're
what I'm
talking about. He's
about?
always real, just like dry.
Yeah,
always
that's
looking
the
at the
Doc,
guy.
dude. If they ever make a movie, a Punch-Out, Nintendo, if you ever make a movie, there's your guy, there's your Doc.
Oh man, could you imagine? Did you ever see? For anyone who's watching this, there is a video out there that's like a real life Punch-Out, and it's like filmed all gritty with like Little Mac working out, and they show like King Hippo, and he's like, it's all live
Seen
action.
that, yeah.
It's like a one of those like trailers that they make, like if we could make a movie.
Right.
You know, it was really cool.
Like
really,
fan-made movie trailer. And it was really
Yeah.
well done.
really well
I would have
done.
watched that.
It doesn't hurt that I love Punch-Out like more than anything in the world. So, but yeah, so you bring up Doc. Nathan, I'm gonna ask a very important question. Why did Little Mac dress in a pink furry outfit when he would chase him
I know the
on
answer.
the bike?
I know the
Do
answer
you?
to this.
Okay.
Because it was the 1980s.
Just the generic answer that yes, that checks the boxes.
I think that passes the smell test.
I can still hear that song.
I can too. Was Rocky was already out, right? Yeah, because Rocky came out like
Yeah.
'83. So
Yeah.
you know they were getting some of those vibes. You know,
He's been described as tough, handsome, talented, sexy, sensitive, dynamic, brilliant.
Yeah.
like the song, but
Yep, he'd be running. He's just
we all loved
Doc's
Rocky
just riding
at
a
that
bike.
time. Rocky was the hero. Rocky and Rambo
Oh, it still is.
were the heroes.
They, both of them still are.
Yeah, definitely. But it didn't, you know, it was almost like when you finally got a little bit further, when you got to some new fighters back then, it was almost like, it was real rewarding, first of all. You'd be like, oh, I wonder who's going to be after this guy. But you would hit a wall really quickly again, and then it
Yeah.
would take you a while to learn that fight. And that's what made the game so addicting, I think.
And then, so again, going back to the story of my dad high-fiving me across the room, Super Macho Man. So, a couple of things about him. One, I was a WWE fan,
Okay.
or WWF at that time.
Right.
So Macho Man, to me, was Macho Man Randy Savage, right?
Hard is this man. What was that? Macho Man Randy Savage?
Happened so fast you can't even talk about it. Lucky person, yeah, out there somewhere is gonna be calling you, because comparatively speaking to the Macho Man Randy Savage, you are nothing but garbage, yeah.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, me too.
yeah.
Yeah.
The way this game was designed was pretty awesome. This game was the modern day, it's gonna sound weird, music game.
It was.
Whether it was Guitar Hero, drumming on Rock Band, Amplitude, it was about pattern recognition
Yeah, and rhythm, right?
and rhythm. Yeah, and it was rhythm in their movement. So this was sort of the first game where, to be good at this game, the only option you had was to memorize it and to play it over and over and over.
Yeah.
You know, you couldn't use other game experience to get through Punch-Out.
And what also, like you just said, but to take it a step further, that made this game so memorable to anybody who was alive at that time, was that we already had things like Nintendo Power, right? That would have strategies and stuff. But I mean, come on, let's be honest. The strategies were kind of not necessary in most cases. I mean, besides like maybe
like level maps in Mario.
Right.
Pretty good,
but for Punch-Out, man, some of your friends were getting the advice from Nintendo Power, or you might have been that guy who had the Nintendo Power.
Yeah, once he does this move, this is it was,
and it made
pretty
you
good.
just a legend amongst your peers, because you'd be like, I know how to beat this. Give me the controller. I mean,
you think about it. There weren't amazing sports games back then. There are a few for sure.
There was some.
But so that was a moment where it was like the modern day esports moment when you're sitting there and you knock out, Bald Bull, and your friends are like, yes, like standing around you like they were part of it, like they were watching the real fight.
Exactly, yeah.
But it was funny because if you got knocked out super hard a couple times, you could mash as fast and as hard as you wanted, and your character was like,
yeah, it was done.
Yeah, you knew it was over. It was like, even with the super controller,
you could feel it somehow. You know what I mean? Like you knew before. You would still try, but you'd be like, he's not getting up. That was a good one. He got him good.
Punch by punch, blow by blow. I hope you all enjoy the show. Punch by punch, blow by blow. I hope you all enjoy the show. Fight for what's right. Train through the night. Push towards the light. Use all your might. They'll try to bring you